Today on Trucks, Project Crazy Horse is back in the stable and ready for some horses of its own, 390 to be exact. And later, Stacey gives us a taste of the Tundra, Toyota style. That's all today on Trucks.
Welcome to Trucks. We have got a kickin' show for you today. Now, the last couple weeks, we've been working on Project Copperhead, which is a very cool, very hot 67 Chevy street truck. Well, this week, we're going to turn our attention back to our old 66 Ford Bronco, known as Crazy Horse. We're going to stick in an engine and drivetrain, so this thing will kick some booty out on the trail. But before we do that, let me bring you up to date on what I've done with this chassis so far. If you've been following this project, well, you saw us install the James Duff suspension and the Curry axles and steering and the motor mounts, etc., etc. Then I took it all back apart, had the frame sandblasted, then I shot on a good thick coat of House of Colors epoxy primer, followed by House of Colors Passion Pearl Purple for color, and a lot of coats of clear. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, shoot, aren't you just going to scratch that paint up? Well, yeah, probably. So I'll just fix it. The point is, whenever you take something down this far, it really is worth your while to spend a little extra time and money putting on some good quality paint materials. Trust me, you won't regret it later on. Now, the engine, we also showed you that a few weeks ago. Now, it's a 302, stroked out to a 350, dynoed at 390 horsepower by Keith Dorton at Automotive Specialists. Now, today's project is not just how to put an engine in, it's the whole drivetrain that goes behind it, and it needs to be strong, and it is. It's right over here. Let's go check it out. Since our Bronco originally had a standard shift, well, we wanted to keep it that way. It's a lot more fun, but we want more than 3 forward gears. So we went to Advanced Adapters, got one of their NV 3550 5-speed kits. Now, this comes with a center force clutch and pressure plate. You've got the all-important bell housing adapter. Got a new cross member, all the hardware, transmission mount, and of course, an NV 3550 5-speed. Now, the reason this is such an excellent swap for the early Bronco is the length is almost exactly what your stock 3-speed is. The weight, almost exactly what your stock 3-speed is. It'll also handle around 450 foot-pounds of torque in a 5,000-pound rig, so strength shouldn't be a problem. The best part is you got 5 forward gears. The first thing we're going to do is mount that new cross member into the frame, and it bolts right to the stock holes. So it's a good idea to take a tap and clean out the threads. Now, here is something that you see a lot on an older vehicle. Notice that we've got a stud broken off in here. So to get that out, take a punch, stick it right in the center of the stud. This will put a dimple right in the center of the bolt. Now drill a pilot hole down the center of the bolt. Then we'll step up to a bigger bit to enlarge this hole. Just make sure you don't get into those original threads. Then we'll take a tool called an easy out or a screw extractor, which is basically a hardened piece of steel that has little teeth in it that'll grip the bolt when you remove it. And you just slide that in the hole and tap it in place. Now, carefully rotate the easy out. You want to make sure you don't break these things off, because if you do, they're almost impossible to get out. Now, once it starts to turn like this, usually they start to come out pretty easy. And make sure you use plenty of penetrating lube on them. And it's also a good idea to chase these threads once you get everything out. There you go. All right, there you go. Finally, with all that taken care of, we can set the new cross member in place and then just finger tight the bolts. Okay, now it is time to get this new engine ready. The first thing we're going to do is bolt on this new flywheel that we got from Ford Racing. Now, here's a couple tips for you. If you are thinking about reusing an old flywheel, well, first you need to check it for any kind of stress cracks, then have it resurfaced, and make sure that you check the starter ring gear. As you can see, this is buggered up pretty bad. That would need to be replaced if we were going to reuse this. Now, something you should never reuse is a clutch plate, pressure plate, or a throwout bearing. I don't care how good they look, that's not the place to get cheap, so replace them. With the flywheel in, it's time to put in that new clutch and pressure plate. Now, this clutch alignment tool does not come with the kit, but it is definitely worth the extra $5 or $6 to go get one because it lines everything up, so when you go to install the tranny, it just slides right in. Okay, now we're ready to turn our attention to that transmission. The first thing we'll do is slide on this aluminum adapter plate from the kit, then take a pen and mark around these upper bolt holes on either side. Then we'll take a grinder, grind a notch here in this mounting flange so we've got clearance for our mounting bolts. Using Loctite on the supplied hardware, we'll go ahead and bolt the adapter to the transmission. Moving on, it's time for the bell housing. Now this is just an old stock bell housing that I picked up used, cleaned it up and painted it. Now, notice when I set this thing into place, we got a problem. It's going to hit this shift rail. So, what we're going to have to do is modify this vent hole. Now the best way to do that is to drill some pilot holes and then take a die grinder with a rotary file on it and just open this up. Just remember, when you have to do this, you don't want to cut all the way down into that indexing ring. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a break while I finish this up. But after the break, well, we're going to put all this stuff together. We'll see you then.
After the break, this little Bronco gets 390 wild horses packed into a small block Ford. And later, it's a dirty job, but Stacey's just gotta do it. And this time, it's Toyota's turn.
Welcome back to the truck shop. Well, we are right in the middle of putting a tough little 5-speed behind this hot 302, and it is all going to go in that old 66 Bronco. Now, we've already got our bell housing modified, which means it is time for the clutch fork. Now, you're going to have to use an original clutch fork on this application. So you're going to want to check it and make sure that it's not damaged on the ends. Now, if you need a replacement fork, well, you can get one from Jeff's Bronco Graveyard. Now, some other things that you want to get from Jeff's is a new fork boot, bushings for all the linkage, and of course any linkage pieces that might be destroyed. For example, look at this cobbled up piece of junk. Now, I hope I don't have to tell you not to reuse something like this. Okay, now that we've got the fork and the new throwout bearing on, we'll take the whole bell housing assembly, slide it onto the block, and bolt it up. All right, Barry, you about ready?
Just about.
Now it is time to bolt this new 5-speed up to the engine. Now it just slides into place, but you're definitely going to need an extra set of hands because they never just slide into place. All right, you ready?
Yep.
Here we go. Easy. Okay, careful through the throw it, Barry. Okay, now real easy. There it goes. All right, Barry, roll that thing in here.
All right.
Now, with your motor mounts and your transmission mounts in place, it is time for the moment of truth to set this thing in the chassis where it belongs. Okay, go ahead and lower it down. Slowly.
Slowly.
There you go. Looks good. Looks good. Right there. A little further. Transmission's in. Yes. Looks perfect. All right, there you go, Barry.
All right.
Thank you. Now, as you can see, this thing literally just dropped into place. All the mounts were exactly where they were supposed to be. I love it when they fit like that. Now, we are ready for the four-wheel drive part of this project, which means a transfer case. So for that, we went back to Advanced Adapters and got their bulletproof Atlas 2 transfer case. Now, the Atlas is a gear-driven transfer case with a one-piece body for superior strength. Now, you can get these in three different ratios. The 4.3 for super low gearing, the new 3.0 Highlander for higher gearing, or the one like we've got, which is the 3.8. It's right between those two, and it's going to work perfect with our axle ratios, transmission gearing, and our tire size. Now, the Atlas shifts with twin sticks, so you got a lot of control in your axles, and you have shift on the fly capabilities. To put it real blunt, the Atlas 2 is the toughest transfer case on the market, period. End of story. Now, remember when I told you earlier how I loved it when things just popped into place? Well, that's because they don't always do that. I know you know what I mean. Well, the James Duff suspension stuff works perfect on a stock Bronco. All the advanced adapter stuff, perfect on a stock Bronco. Now, when you add components together, though, sometimes they don't mesh perfectly. Let me show you what I mean. You notice I can't push this transfer case all the way up against the transmission. I've got some clearance problems down here. So I'm going to go ahead and notch these holes, slide the cross member forward, and that'll take care of that. I also notice over here, when I rotate the transfer case up, I'm going to hit this Duff mount right here. So I'm going to have to grind a little notch there, so that'll clear, and that'll take care of it. Unfortunately, I don't have time to do all that today, so that's a project for another day. But after the break, we're going to show you some more cool stuff. There you go.
When Trucks returns, Stacey shows you how he's going to keep that hungry pony fed with a new fuel tank for Crazy Horse. That's next. Just can't get enough of trucks? Check us out online at truckstv.com.
Welcome back to the shop, where I'm doing some of the final fit and finish on Project Crazy Horse, and it is going to be awesome. As you can see, I've got the engine, the transmission, drivetrain pretty well taken care of. Now it's time for the gas tank. Now, the tank we're going to be using, I got from Wild Horses, and it's EPA approved, 20 gallons. As you can see, it's got all the vents and tubes so you can run fuel injection or a carburetor. Now, it also comes with all the hardware and the hoses to put it in, but we forked out a little extra, got this really thick skid plate to protect the bottom of the tank from rocks and trees and things like that. Now, the first thing we're going to do is put in this sending unit. Make sure you use some sealant on the gasket. Then install a sender so the float goes out into the body of the tank. You don't want it over in here. Well, then slide it in and bolt it on. Take some thin rubber strips, lay them on the skid plate so you don't have any metal-to-metal contact. Then take the gas tank, set it down on the skid plate, and then just jack it into place. The tank is held in place with these straps and these J-bolts. They come with a kit and go right into the stock holes on the frame. Now, you will need to take a rotary file, kind of open those holes up a little bit, because this new hardware is a little thicker than the stock stuff. Now, when you tighten everything up, it lifts that tank until these little feet come in contact with the body of the truck, and the tank's mounted. Now, one other thing that you do have to permanently mount to the door jamb is this little sticker. Now, this certifies that this tank meets all the safety and emissions requirements of a new tank. Very important. Well, there it is, Project Crazy Horse, the chassis. What do you think? Well, I can't wait to get this thing out and get it off-road. Now, you're probably wondering, well, what about the body? Well, the next time we work on this truck, we're going to deal with the body and the interior, but not today. That's for another show. But we're not done today. We got more trucks right after this.
When we come back, what do you do with a nice, new, clean, white Toyota Tundra? Why, drive it through the mud, of course. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Trucks. All right, here's the deal. You're in the market for a brand new V8 powered truck because you need that extra torque and horsepower for truck stuff, and you're having trouble deciding between Ford, Chevy, and Dodge. Well, before you limit yourself to just those three choices, there is another V8 truck out there that you really need to take a look at. Now, the V8 Tundra won numerous awards when it came out a couple years ago, including the coveted 4x4 of the Year award. But just how good is it? Well, the only way to answer that is to show you one up close and personal, and to take one on the type of test drive that everybody would like to do to one of these. So, here we go. All right, let's get right to the heart of this truck. The engine is a 4.7 liter double overhead cam 32 valve V8. Now it's kicking out 245 horses and 315 foot-pounds of torque. And this gives you a 7,200 pound towing capacity and over a ton hauling capacity. The Tundra suspension is very stable on the road. It handles well under most normal road conditions with just the expected mild understeer. Of course, having that extra power on tap is a whole lot of fun. It makes it real easy to break the rear end of this thing loose and slide it around. Braking is excellent, hauling the Tundra down to a stop quickly in just about any situation. Off-road, the Tundra really comes into its own, with the independent front suspension easily absorbing high-speed ruts. When you get into deep ruts, well, the little Toyota is really tough. As you can see, I laid this thing down on the skid plates and cross members numerous times with no damage to the exhaust system or the drivetrain because they are all tucked up out of the way. Now, the limited slip differentials kept me moving instead of getting hung up and stuck. In mud, the stock tires definitely limited the Toyota's potential, but once again, the four-wheel drive and limited slip pulled us through some pretty sticky situations. In climbing hills, the Tundra definitely has the power, despite the tires. It has decent ground clearance, and of course the departure angle is pretty much what you would expect on a truck. But you put on some aggressive tires and about a 4 to a 6 inch lift, and you're going to have a great trail rig. One of the best parts about the new Tundra though, is after you're done thrashing it and beating it around, you just drive it back on the road to the local car wash and clean it up, which makes this a very tough truck to which we've got to give 2 thumbs up.
And now truck gear, parts, tools, and equipment for pickups and sport utilities.
When you're working on your project and you've gotten it torn down this far, well, now is the perfect time to start thinking about the exhaust system. Now, your first reaction might be, what, exhaust system? Now? Are you crazy? No. When are you going to have better access to the frame and the suspension components and the cross members and when the body's off? Even if you don't install it, you can still lay it out. And Flowmaster can help you do that with their mufflers and their universal tailpipe kits. Now, for this old Bronco, we're going to use these new Delta mufflers. Very low profile, very small. They will tuck right into a really tight spot, but they still flow and sound like a Flowmaster. Very important. Now, the universal tailpipe kits, they come with a whole bunch of different pipes, all have a little bit different bend. 2.5 inch aluminized pipe. You just take some of those and you can literally build the custom exhaust system that you want without ever going to a muffler shop. Now, for a vehicle that has a lot bigger engine and a little more room to spare, like our old 67 here, well, we're also going to use Flowmasters. We're going to use these big Series 50 mufflers. That's pretty much the muffler that made Flowmaster, well, Flowmaster. Now, they'll slide right in here, tuck in nice, fit great, and sound awesome. Now, for the tailpipes, once again, we'll take the universal tailpipe kit. We'll be able to slide right around the cross members, around the gas tank, and we won't have to make a single custom bend. That's going to save us a lot of time and money. Now, Flowmaster also has H-pipe kits, as well as some really trick stainless steel tips, which should go to show you that Flowmaster is not just a muffler company. They can help you with the whole exhaust system. Now, for those of you that are into doing some serious metalworking, well, I know there is one tool you are just dying to own, an English wheel. Man, the compound shapes and curves that you can get in metal with an English wheel, oh, they're amazing. Unfortunately, so is the price. You'll be lucky to find an English wheel for under $5,000. Well, Covell Creative Metalworking decided to do something about that and came out with this English wheel kit. Now, this kit consists of an upper yoke and the upper wheel. You have the lower yoke and various different anvil wheels so you can get the shape in the metal that you want. Now, you also have metal casters. You have the screw lift assembly. And most important, you have a very detailed set of instructions so you can build a nice framework to hold all this stuff. Now, Covell Creative Metalworking sells this kit for around $1,300. All you add is some time and some metal, and you have a state-of-the-art, full-sized English wheel that all your friends are going to want to borrow. That's going to take care of it for today. I think I'm going to start putting this thing together. I'll see you next week.
For a VHS copy of today's show, call toll-free 1-877-853-7260. Show videos are just $12.95 plus shipping and handling. Trucks is an RTM production.